So it's been a long 4 days, and I appreciate everyone for hanging in there with us, for supporting this conference, this powerful conference. Before I introduce Pastor Renee, I just want to first recognize and lift up my comrades from the Black Radical Organizing Collective. If you're here, can you please stand up? Please give it up for the Black Radical Organizing Collective, who spent 4 months organizing a powerful, 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 powerful free conference for the Black community of Philadelphia. Give it up for my comrades. Show them love and light. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Reverend Dr. Renee McKenzie is the pastor of the historic Church of the Advocate, located here at 18th and Diamond. We're in the heart of North Philadelphia. During her 4-year ministry at the Advocate, she has revitalized its ministry of outreach and community service that now features a soup kitchen, serving 10 meals per week, community social service referrals, and a daily after-school program that includes athletics, academics, and cultural enrichment. Reverend McKenzie received her PhD, Temple University, 2005, in religion with a focus on womanist religious thought and the philosophy of religion. The Church of the Advocate, an Episcopal congregation, is known for an open and inclusive ministry that centralizes its work around social justice advocacy and active engagement with the marginalized and oppressed. Its sanctuary is a historically landmark building for its architecture, 14 African American history murals, and the activities that took place in the building under the ministry of the Reverend Paul Washington. Reverend McKenzie's most recent publication is an exploration that identify of the Church of the Advocate entitled Being the Advocate, which was published 2013, the Episcopal and Anglican History Journal. Without further ado, the Reverend Renee McKenzie, Dr. Reverend Renee McKenzie.
So if someone were to ask me, Renee, how are you feeling right now? I would have to say I am feeling extremely blessed, gratified, and encouraged, because this has been a tremendous conference. And I want to thank Patrice. Patrice worked really, really hard on this. Yes. What happened to Patrice? But obviously not her alone, but we also recognize the other members of the collective. And certainly we cannot forget Dr. Anthony Montero. So Patrice asked me to come up and just welcome you to the space, and I am doing that, welcome you to the Church of the Advocate. And as we were gathering this evening, I had a couple of conversations with people who were standing and looking at the murals, and I said, have you ever been here before? And both of the persons who I spoke to, they said, yes, but it's been a while. And they said, but it always feels like home. And that's what the Advocate is. The Advocate is your home. And so please come back often, relish the peace of this space. And I can honestly tell you that I am convinced that there is no place else in the world that is like the Church of the Advocate. No place. Mentioned earlier that it's a nationally historic landmark building, and that's true. But it's not just historically landmark because it is the finest example of a French Gothic revival-style cathedral in this country. It's not historically landmark just for that, even though that's incredible enough. But it's also historically landmark because of the activities that has taken place in this structure, and mostly under the ministry of Father Paul Washington. So we know that in 1968, there were 3 important events that took place. There were 2 Black Power conventions, and there was a conference of the Black Panthers as well, at a time where there were probably no church in the country except the Church of the Advocate would have opened their doors to allow something like that to take place. And that just tells you something about the Advocate's commitment to the marginalized and the oppressed and for social justice. And then in 1974, we were the church that hosted the ordination of the first 11 women into the Episcopal priesthood. And this happened at a time where it was not authorized or sanctioned by the church, but Father Paul and some other people said, it is a movement of the Spirit that women deserve. Women need to be in ministry because they have gifts to bring and gifts that people need to have. So this is the Church of the Advocate. Sometime I guess after 1968, where Father Paul became very consciously identified with the Black radical community, some folks came in and they took a look around this space. They said, this is a beautiful space, Paul. They said, but if this is a Black church, why are there no Black images? And so that challenged Paul to think about that, right? And so what he did, then he commissioned these 14 murals that you see around the nave of the church where the people gather. This is the people's space, right? Where the people gather are these 14 murals. There are 2 artists who did the murals, Richard Watson, who's still around Philadelphia, and if you really want to understand the murals, then you come here when Richard Watson is doing a tour, because he will give you an explanation about these murals, what they mean, what they represent in a way that no one else can do. The second artist is Walter Edmonds, and I'll just tell you very quickly, you can tell who did the murals by the style on the murals. So the murals where the colors are very vibrant and the images are very graphic and in your face, that's Walter Edmonds. Richard Watson's mural, they're more flowy, there's a lot of flowing lines, and the colors are a little more muted, and that's Richard Watson. Both are powerful. Both tell the story in an incredible way. What Father Paul did, he gave them the biblical passage for each of the murals. He talked about what the theme would be for the murals, and then he left it up to the artists to do whatever the Spirit told them to do in putting the artwork on the canvas. And Richard Watson said that they were in here sometimes for 48 hours straight, just painting. They didn't come in with any preconceived notions about what would be on the canvas, but they let the Spirit and this place and the Spirit of the ancestors speak to and through them. And so now we have 14 incredible works of art that tell an incredible story, the story of Black oppression and Black resistance to oppression. This is the first one in the series over here, and that's a Richard Watson's work. What's interesting about these murals, and on this one, that's Richard Watson's first one, and this is Walter Edmonds, that's his last. And so that's number 1, and that's number 14. If you look around this cathedral, you'll see a lot of faces that have been carved into the stone. And so a lot of these faces represents the artists who did the work. The people who built the cathedral, their family members. The building itself is a memorial to George W. South, and so you see George W. South's face, and you see the face of his family. Well, Richard Watson and Walter Edmonds did the same thing, because on these murals you see Richard Watson's 2 sons up there, the cherubims, that's their faces. And then Walter Edmonds did the same thing on this side. This place is filled with the spirit of the ancestors. And I think that's one reason why I love it so much, and that's one reason why it feels like home. So now this is my shameless promotion here. So we have 2 books. One is on the murals, and it gives you very nice, beautiful color photos with a description, a writing from Father Paul about what those murals mean, as well as the biblical passage and the particular reference to the murals. And then we have a book, and they're for sale. The book on the murals is $15, And there's a book that tells you about the architecture of this space, and that's $10. And so both of those are for sale. The other option is that we've just started our docent program, and I think our lead docent is here somewhere, Valerie Anderson, and she has trained our docents. I know Barbara Cox is one of our docents. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is to bring people to this space because people need to see this. People are surprised that something this lovely, this incredible, and this beautiful exists on this corner. They need to know the story because this is our story, and we need to make sure that we keep it alive and keep it well. So know that the Advocate is always looking for support. We never have enough. We never have enough money. We never have enough volunteers. We never have enough resources. All right? We need you to become an active part of who we are so we can keep this thing going, right? Philadelphia needs this place, not because I'm here, because of what it stands for. Liberation, freedom, justice, truth, and the willingness to struggle and to strive and to push and to speak unapologetically for the oppressed and for Black people in particular. Welcome to the Advocate.
Thank you so much, Pastor Renee. I was back and forth over there with Food Not Bombs, so I'm not sure if Pastor Renee shared that the Church of the Advocate is the sole principal sponsor of the Black Radical Tradition Conference. So I want all the folks to know that it's because of the Church of the Advocate. Yes, I think y'all need to stand up. It's a Black church that supported this conference. We didn't go and write grants for the establishment to fund our conference. It was a Black church in the heart of North Philadelphia that sponsored this conference. They deserve an applause or to get up on your feet for that because that's rarely done. Churches rarely have the resources, and the ones that do don't. I want to now also lift up our co-sponsors, Food Not Bombs. I know you're all familiar with Food Not Bombs. Give it up for Food Not Bombs. And I'm going to call Gabriel up because I want him to speak about the work that Food Not Bomb, what they do.
It's an honor to be here and follow that. That wasn't for me, but we're with West Philly Food Not Bombs. We've been operating out of Cedar Park and Malcolm X Park for the last 2 years. Thank you. And we're very proud that we haven't missed distributing food for the past 2 years. There was maybe 4th of July when it didn't happen, but we've been very consistent. And we're dedicated to that community. Myself, we're from that community, and it's extremely important to us that we liberate the people there from having to be dependent on the government. Because what Food Not Bomb stands for is that, the government could provide food for all of us, but they've shown that they're irresponsible at the best, neglectful at the best, but we all know that they're really determined to make sure that we're hungry and starving. And we want to break that cycle by making sure that people don't have to depend on the government. And so what we were able to do here, just by our efforts, and we were able to provide food for everyone here. And it was difficult, but we were able to make it happen. And if we all pitched in together, we could do that for everybody. And we just wanted to take that energy and that intention of just the generosity and the solidarity, and just keep spreading that. And we welcome you to come and join us in what we do. And we have information where you can get in contact with us. We do a serve on Thursdays out of Lava Space in Mantua, Malcolm X Park on Fridays, and we also distribute food on the Parkway on Sundays. So we'd love to have you involved and reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Thanks again to Food Not Bombs. If you haven't, they do have a donation bowl, so whatever you have, please support them. Put something in their donation bowl. Right now is Sister Ursula. Are you out there still, Ursula? I don't have a prepared bio, but everyone know, because I ran into her as we were leaving, and I said, Ursula, I said, sister, you going to come over and join us? She said, no, I got to go home to my sons. And boom, she popped up. So I have to give her some time. So give it up for a powerful spoken word artist. Give it up for my sister, Ursula.
Okay, so keep it short so all this can happen and you can get that fire that's about to hit you right now. But I just thank you for the opportunity to share this with you all. And I've been in this space many times to share, and I'm grateful and I'm honored to be in this space and feeling the spirit and part of this amazing conference. Anthony Montero, you the So I think what this whole thing is based upon, and the real reason that we're all here, and if it's not the real reason that you're here, then it needs to be, this poem is called Love. On this day, there'll be no talk of war, or politic, or disaster, or death. Love is alive today, so we will speak only of love. There will be only love on tongue and lip, and in heart and thought. And it won't be that Hollywood type of love, not TV love, not dime store novel love, and certainly not, absolutely not, mainstream music love. Love, love, you know, love. Love that has been worked on like gardens and term papers. Love that has been nurtured like children, and well, like children. Love that falls, crashes, even burns, but dusts off, fixes up, and rises, rises. More brilliant than before, Phoenix love, yeah, Phoenix love. So let us speak only of love, real healing love. No herbal or over-the-counter love, real healing love like God's love, like your mama's love, like your little baby's love, like best friend love, like lover's love, like change the world love, like human love. Humans love. Love soft, love hard, but just love. Enjoy this new garden. Work on it together, and it will be beautiful. It will grow from year to year. It will be perennial. It will win blue ribbons and everything. And folks will come from far and wide just to see it and wish they had this kind of garden, this kind of, enjoy this new garden. Work on it together, and it's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna grow from year to year, it's gonna be perennial. It's gonna win blue ribbons and everything. I promise you, if you gather in sacred spaces like the Church of the Advocate for this reason on this day, I promise you, it's gonna win blue ribbons and everything, and folks are gonna come from far and wide just to see it, and they gonna wish they had this kind of garden, this kind of love, had this kind of garden, this kind of love, had this kind of garden, this kind of, had this kind of garden, this kind of, had this kind of garden, this kind of love.
Thank you so much, Ursula. Thank you. That was so powerful. I want to now introduce the coordinator of developmental programs at the Community College of Philadelphia, former field secretary of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party from 69 to 74. She's also a member of the Philosophy and Black Liberation Free Class Saturday School that takes place here at the Church of the Advocate every Saturday. I had to put a plug in from 9:30 to 12. My sister mentor, someone who I love, who's a warm-hearted person. I've never seen her mad or angry. And to know that she was in a Black Panther Party, I love her, Yvonne King. Oh my God.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I first want to say that it's been a privilege to work with the organizers, the volunteers that put this conference together. Extremely successful, a very humbling and very informative experience. Took me back in the day, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future. In 1966, when Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale founded the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, based on the 10-point platform and program, they did not envision a national organization with 37 chapters, an international section, ideological recognition and support from national liberation movements and progressive governments throughout the world, in Asia, in Africa, in the Americas. And yet, that's what happened. The government, as we know, as we've learned over the years, invested a great deal to destroy this tremendous threat to their capitalistic system. In the summer of 1967, our leader and chief theoretician, Huey P. Newton, wrote the following, and I want to quote him. "The main purpose of the Vanguard Group should be to raise the consciousness of the masses through educational programs and other activities." He went on to say that the sleeping masses must be bombarded with the correct approach to struggle, and the party must use all means available to get this information across to the masses. The charge was very clear. The party realized that it could not rely on the power structures, media, in order to educate the masses. And so we created our own. The Panther Party newspaper was a weekly publication. Each issue had Emory Douglas's revolutionary artwork on its cover, front, and back. This tool not only educated the masses, but it also helped to create a glue, a unity for those of us within the party. Now let me take a couple minutes just to talk a little bit about the structure. People always know about there were 37 chapters, different chapters, but what was the relationship? And I want you to think about how this happened during a period where there was no internet, there was no Skype, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook. And so very often we did not have face-to-face communications with our leadership nationally. The chapters were set up. I'm going to use my chapter, in Illinois as an example of how we organized and our relationship with the national office and how the party paper affected our life in the party and how it helped to build and sustain our organization. The Illinois chapter was founded in 1968 after receiving approval from the national headquarters. We opened up our first office the same year in November. We had, you hear about chapters, you hear about branches. The chapters were state organizations that were responsible for organizing branches within the state. And we took that charge very seriously and organized 6 branches in different parts of Illinois. East St. Louis in the south, Peoria in central Illinois, Rockford in the north, Argo in the western suburbs, and of course Maywood, Fred Hampton's hometown. The paper came weekly. It informed us about what was happening on the West Coast. It informed us about what was happening in other chapters. It also gave us an opportunity to share with the rest of the organization what we were doing, how the community was being impacted by our work, and learning about how it was being impacted by the others. We weren't able to Google how do you set up a free breakfast for children program or how to set up a medical center. The national headquarters would set the tone, and then they would expect the chapters to follow suit. And we had to be creative in doing so, and we did so. Why? Because of our love for the people. Very important. The role of the people. We worked collectively. We lived with people we may not have ever lived with under any other circumstances, but for our shared commitment to the work that we were doing, to our service to the people. In the chapter, we also had a central staff. We were highly structured, and our central staff was patterned after the National Headquarters Central Committee. For example, Bobby Seale was the chairman of the Black Panther Party. Fred Hampton was the deputy chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. Sorry. All of the branches also had their chain of command. They were subordinate to the state leadership. And this structure helped us to provide accountability within, helped us to have discipline in order to succeed in implementing and sustaining the programs and other work that we did for the people. The paper not only talked about things that we were doing in the community, but it also addressed internal contradictions. It interpreted phenomena that was going on outside. It is very important that any organization have its organ, have its own way of defining what it is that they're doing in order to control, to establish the narrative and control the message. Very critical. The paper was also a part of our political education classes, which we had weekly, and they were mandatory. We couldn't go out and sell the paper unless we knew what was in it. This was also a way for us to be visible in the community and to talk to the people about what was happening with them and what was happening in other communities in the state or wherever. The party's paper was so terribly important. And it was also a means of generating revenue for the chapter as well as the party at large. The party paper cost 25 cents. It's really hard to say today. 25 cents. We were allowed to keep a certain percentage of the money which went to help us to operate within, our daily activities. Most of us did not work. We lived collectively in order to work 24/7 within the party and for the people. The bottom line, of course, is for any organization to control what they're doing. I want to give you an example of how important it is to be able to control the message. When Fred Hampton was assassinated, December 4th, 1969, and Mark Clark, who was the head of a recently established branch in Peoria, Illinois, was also killed in that same police raid, government-inspired, of course. We did not have to rely on the Chicago Tribune or the Sun-Times to tell us what happened. We had our paper to not only tell the people what happened in that raid, but to also tell them why. So I want to close with another quote from Huey P. Newton. And this was written May 1st, 1971. The importance of a structured political vehicle has always been apparent to us. When we went to Sacramento, we went for the purpose of educating the people and building a permanent political vehicle to serve their true interests. In our most recent communication with both the North and South Vietnamese revolutionary governments, they pointed out that they understood what we were doing and saw it as the correct strategy. They said that, quote, a structured organization is related to politics as a shadow to a man. Huey went on to state that oppressed Black people did not have a structured organization to represent their true interests until the Black Panther Party arose from within the community, motivated by the needs and conditions of the people. All power to the people.
Thank you, Yvonne. I want to now introduce a poet, political activist, author, and lecturer. He is the founder of Talking Drum Communications, he was co-founder and director of Power and creator of Project Unis, Redefining Black Manhood. Please give it up for Wari X Asiande.
It is truly an honor to be here with you tonight. I was invited to share a poem for Brother Emery, understanding that you and Baraka were very good friends, and so Baraka was my teacher. Was a student of his work, of his life, and glad to call him a friend as well. And so at a conference like this, certainly whether his name is called or not, we know that his spirit is with us. But it's important for us all the same to acknowledge those who came before us, what they left for us, and the work that we still need to do. So I also want to say thanks to Sister Yvonne King and gratitude for your work, and this is called Black Fire Blazing. Doom 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 doom. A love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme. In another world, you've been president like Senghor, negritude's rule, Pan-Africa's promise. In another reality, you'd been prime minister like Patrice, unassassinated by CIA soldiers. But tell the truth and shame the devil is what you did, because that be the reality played on us here. Baraka, they still scared of you. Got FBI agents pouring through the pages of your books with magic markers trying to censor your memory from our minds. As Negrofied critics lie online, make your name into a byword in New York Times bylines explaining how your books never made it to the bestsellers list as if you sought that shit. Speak the truth and shame the devil is what you did. Black fire blazing, Langston's raisin in the sun, an explosion of black art against the white sky. You blew up their cannon, brought a new standard, freed the verse from iambic pentanima, whose pen was a sword taking on the national horde in '72 when they turned Newark into Hanoi. Leroy, we still jonesing for you. Want to hear you pounding on the podium as if it were a djembe calling forth the warrior within us, because we are at war. When our children be dropping like flies under an NRA-sponsored bullet shower, we are at war when the government been hijacked by Wall Street terrorists in cahoots with Supreme Court jesters. We are at war when our cities are ruled by neo-colonial hustlers, corporate lackeys whose black faces they own skin. So let us begin. We still need poems that kill ignorance, that kill apathy, that kill negrosity in cold blood. You put your verses versus the system itself. Put our rage on the page and dare the world read it with both eyes wide open. A Marx man, looking through the crosshairs of your consciousness, taking aim. Yeah, they still scared. And now respectable Afro-demics with alphabets after they slave names locked in ivory towers want to shower you with fake praise, talk about freedom of speech. Let them do a PhD study on why your skull got cracked. Let them dissertate on the affirmative action of your knocked out teeths. They are but double Dutched men, dodging bullets on a New York subway trying to convince Bernard Goetz they not like the rest of us. But you, juju master of the black arts, left them on pins and needles, voodoo wordsmith casting spells on the illiterate, cracking the shell of European syntax. There was no shuffle in your walk, no stutter in your talk, no bougie in your boogie down and got down. You did for the workers, the peasants, the wage slaves, for them that get the labor depraved. You will forever be poet laureate of the proletariat. You said it's not enough to write the poem, the play, when we don't control the stage and the whole world is a production. Ownership of the means by any means, by any means, by any means necessary. You, a synthesis of Malcolm and Mao, a dialectics of defiance from Marx to Monk, a blue funk, as avant-garde as Tubman going back to the South with nothing but a shotgun, talking way out where you is now, way out on the surreal side. That owl exploding is you now in the tree of life, eyes big as Baldwin's with Malcolm's X-ray vision, seeing through they bullshit like Coltrane's horn, blowing our minds forever. Who, and asking the questions we're most fear to tread. Nah, you ain't dead. The lecturer lives on in us who's still here, sipping from your stream of consciousness. Raise the black nation worldwide. We forever call your name. It sounds like thunder clapping and standing ovation. Baraka, Baraka, Baraka.
Thank you so much, Awori. Now I want to introduce a prominent artist and educator based in Philadelphia, but his art is known all over the world, Mr. James Dupre.
There's a reason why they kill the artists first. They wipe us out first. It's an honor and a pleasure to stand in front of each and every one of you here today. When I came to Philadelphia, one of the first artists I met was Richard Watson. My big brother, who was 10 years older than me almost to the day, was Walter Edmonds. Walter was born, I believe, 1940, April 25th. I was born 1950, April 26th. We bonded within seconds, and meeting Walter really paved the way. He was a revolutionary, a visionary, and the first thing he taught me was also the words of my grandfather. The only thing in life that's real is real estate. The second thing, once you possess the land, you never give it back. I've been asked to talk about my history as an artist, and more so as a black artist. For years, I was opposed to that idea that I was a black artist. I was going to be famous. I decided to become an artist in 1957 at 7 years of age. There's nothing else that I wanted to do. There was nothing else that was more important to me was to make this art. I never had any idea what that concept and that idea, what that would manifest itself into becoming. After graduating from the University of Pennsylvania and 9 years of art education, the first thing that happened to me here in the city of Philadelphia, competing with 2,800 artists, I won first place and my piece went into the Philadelphia Art Museum. That was my second piece in a major museum. My first piece was at the Columbus College of Art and Design, competing with all the artists in Ohio. I went to CCAD, including my faculty. At age 20, 21, I won first prize at the Columbus Museum of Fine Arts in Columbus, Ohio. The next year, I flunked painting. True story. As my journey progressed, I came to the conclusion, especially after what happened here in Philadelphia, that my journey was about telling personal stories as it related to my life. Years after that, I ended up teaching at University of the Arts, and I took my personal concept of tell your story. Concept mirrors technique, technique mirrors concept. As a teacher, you never know how that's going to affect your students. There's one of my students over there who helped put this together behind the scenes. All I could think about was, wow, I did my job. When I met Patrice, the first thing, she came to me over at my studio museum in Mantua and said, I want to film you and support you. I said, girl, I ain't got time for you. I'm on my way to Miami. I'm going to Art Basel, the biggest show in the world. All right, I'll give you 20 minutes. Didn't think much about it. In that 25 minutes, she filmed me at a time that I was trying to go through a situation and ignore what it was really doing to me. But in that film, you can see it. If you saw or see or heard about that film that she did, look at that film 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and look at me today. I had no idea the effects of what was happening to me here by my people. Philadelphia government. My mayor, who also went to the University of Pennsylvania and actually gave me and was part of the award Living Legend from the University of Pennsylvania. They don't care about this art. They really don't care about artists. Their goals and objectives had nothing to do with me. As a result of that, I just was being me. As somebody said, do you, James? So I went about doing me. But what they didn't know was I've always done me. I remember studying at the University of Pennsylvania, and I did a painting called There's a War in South Africa. South White African Devils. They stopped talking to me. I thought it was some great work. In my mind, it was great work. Then I went about attacking things in a sarcastic way, subliminal way. South White African mummers. Thought it was really clever. It was decorative. Allowed people to engage in conversation until they found out what it was. But what they didn't know in 1962, at 12 years old, growing up in the Hawthorne Projects, wanting to run the 13th Street Gang, we threw bricks at the Mummers Parade for that blackface. They stopped wearing blackface if you do the history in 1963. We stoned them bastards in 62. It was a bunch of kids. It was kids. Shortly thereafter, I was forced to leave home because the last time my stepfather hit me, I had 20 kids waiting for him. I wanted to run the Little Street, the 13th Street gang. And my hero was, if you know the history of the Hawthorne Projects, Little Peanut. I could assume that a position in a few years. Then I go from the all-black community to the all-white community. It was tragic. I had to beat up the biggest kid in the school. Growing up in the projects, there comes a point in time you have to say, you're not going to take my lunch money today. So I got a stick. I waited on the corner. Well, it was a 2x4. And I hit him in the head. I'm a conscientious objector. I had figured out a long time ago. Why should I go to war for this country when I still can't live on your street? Right? Right? And I figured that out. So I stayed in college for 9 years. Like I said yesterday, master's degree, University of Pennsylvania. I remember my mentor was angry at me because he said, James, you could go to Harvard or Yale. Bird in the hand, full scholarship, 3 years, teaching assistantship. I'm going to Penn, one of the most racist institutions in the world. I'm sitting there, used to go to the gym every day. I recognize this kid. I go, oh, that's my high school president, Mickey Kaplan. Yo, Mick, how you feeling? What are you doing here? I'm doing the same thing you doing, brother. Working on my master's degree. I never knew that this city of Philadelphia would not support me in my efforts to move into the community that I actually was part of, where we had a school, Life Skills Resource Center for kids after school, hotline for runaway teens, group home, right around the corner where they beat Dalbert Africa half to death on live TV. I used to walk my kids to school the whole time that they were boycotting. So I thought the city and my council person was astute enough to understand who I was. I never thought about how this artwork relates to political causes. I was just making art. I did a series that was wonderful called my Contained series. Looked like Frank Stella, Barnett Newman. Until I started talking about isolation, segregation, and being totally ostracized. They loved my work until I started talking. If only I would shut up and not tell the truth. In my film that's coming out, that is out, that we produced 3 years of documentation. I end that film what everybody in this room knows. The one thing in America that could get you killed is to tell the truth. So, I have constantly done things in a subversive way that have pissed people off and would not allow me a slice of the pie. So I said, F it, we're in church. And created a series called Stolen Dreams and Forbidden Fruit. 15 years ago, I said the last great thing that I had to do with my art was attack racism. I had a show here in Philadelphia was at Art Jazz Gallery, and I wanted to help that gallery. Sinzansky, for those of us in Philadelphia, was the great art critic, said, that James Dupre's work is vibrant in color and spirit and life, but I don't understand this racism thing he's talking about. Must be subliminal. Total affirmation. As I moved on with that series, and most recently, I did a piece that I thought was brilliant called Evolving Elements. I actually designed it for the children's prison. You know, in Philadelphia, they'd rather build a prison than a school, where our city officials are tearing down our schools. But they got time and money to build the prisons. So I said, let me try to do a piece of hope. Best piece I ever did. 30, 40 feet. Has the oldest symbol in the world in the center of it. It's a spiral. Vortex. I could teach the kids the word vortex. Are you moving into the darkness or out into the light? Power of choice. You're not a bad person. Just made a bad decision for that particular period of time. And then it's improvisation of music. Musical notes projecting out of the piece in ovals. When you put on 3D glasses, chroma contrast, it projects out 12 feet, 8 to 12 feet. Magic. Mystic. The art of mysticism. We as artists now have to attack back. All I wanted was my building. It's on now. My next show, White Art for Black History Month. I called up Ursula. I said, Ursula, I got to talk to somebody. I can only talk to the real artists because everybody knows I'm crazy. That OG up there in West Philadelphia is crazy. All right? So let me start with the first devil that attacked me, saying, who the hell do you think you are? I'm the artist. Don't you know me? Oh, I'm invisible. Now that you see me, you can't see me. So let me help you with something. Since you don't know, I'm the Black Picasso. Do you know me now? I dare for you to mention my name in City Hall. They know me. My legacy in Philadelphia is 5 pieces in the Philadelphia Art Museum. The Sonia Sanchez mural. Greater Exodus Church down the street. Mother Bethel Church. The history of the first church in America. You don't know me? It is an honor and a pleasure to think that I get to introduce, shake his hand, give him a hug, the artist for the Black Panther Party. Oh my God, man, this is incredible. His story ain't that much different. He didn't start out, I'm going to be a political artist. He started out as an artist. Art in America saved us. I was teaching at the University of Virginia, the second one to teach in that art department. That man didn't even let his own women go to that school. So I knew it was an honor to be down there. I was doing well. They were going to give me that position until I stood up, 250 people, and somebody asked me, Professor Dupre, what do you think about art in education? Here it comes. I told the truth. I said, in America that's doing away with art and education, why would you go to school? What are they going to do next? Take sports out? Brothers and sisters won't even come to school. Where I went to school, you could dance. You could play musical instruments. We had every sports available to us. And then I got caught up in the moment and said, America would rather incarcerate a black man than educate him. We like you, Mr. Dupre, but I don't think we have a job for you. I see the parallel now. All I was doing was trying to be an artist. Now I'm a political artist. I said, it's on. And I'm going to show those that want to continue to suppress me in the city of Philadelphia to take it to the world. The movie's coming out, the musical, the books, and the 400 pieces of artwork from the stress. At this time, it's a great honor and a privilege. Sir, Emory, I'm calling you by your first name. If you ever come to Philadelphia, you got a place to stay. Everybody, Emory Douglas.
I'd like to start off by thanking the Black Tradition Committee and everyone else for inviting me. And while we get everything set up, we want to move the screen closer, so perhaps that would work better for people to see. But in the process of doing that, I wanted to let you know that what I'm going to do this evening is give you some insight behind some of the images I've done over the years, some of the historical images, as well as more recent work that has been done since the mid-2000s. Okay. First of all, I want to let you know that the artwork itself is not a me art, but a we art. It is an art that is a reflection of the politics that we, the Black Panther Party, was involved in. And the art was an interpretation of that. Sometimes was very provocative in many ways. But we will see some provocative images. We will see some that deals with the solidarity with people's struggles around the world. We will also see images that deal with the social programs of the Black Panther Party and many of the things that we were involved in during that time. Since 2005, there's been a lot of interest in the historical work as well as more recent work. I've had the opportunity to travel to many parts of the world. I've done work with the Zapatistas in Chiapas. I've done work and was invited there by Udelo Art Center. Also worked with Aboriginal artist Richard Bell in Australia, and with some of the Maori artists in New Zealand. So some of those things I will highlight as well in the presentation. But first of all, I want to give some historical context to where the Panther symbol came from. It was in Lowndes County, Alabama. It was the Lowndes County, Alabama Freedom Organization, which was an independent political party in rural Mississippi that adopted the symbol of the Black Panther Party for its organization. But it was in 1965, the racial makeup of Lowndes County, Alabama, which consisted of about 15,000 people, was made up of 80% black and only 20% white, which was entirely controlled by the white establishment. And they held the right to vote. Blacks were not allowed to register to vote, therefore had no voice. So it was through Stokely Carmichael and many others, and SNCC, who went to Lowndes County and began again to educate and enlighten the blacks who didn't have that right, and they formed the same organization called the Lowndes County, Alabama Freedom Organization. And they had to have a symbol in order to be a political organization. The white racists, which you can turn to the next image, please, had a symbol, which was the symbol for white supremacy, was the white croc. The blacks had the panther. How did that come about? It came about because they seen these high school sports teams with the different animals, and they chose the panther. And that symbol, so the panther symbol comes from the South during the Civil Rights Movement, 1965. Next, please. Here is that actual image. This is pre-Black Panther Party for self-defense, Black Panther Party. Vote November 8th, pull a lever for the Black Panther and go home. This is in Lowndes County in Alabama. Is it too much light? Can you see in the back of the images? Do it need some of the lights to be out? Let me know. So we can continue on from here. First of all, I would like to read the statement so you can kind of get an idea of the images and what I'm going to reflect on. It's called A Battle Cry, Culture is a Weapon. The battle cry, culture is a weapon, is a powerful tool in all of its expressions and forms. It has the power to transform the colonization of the imagination. It is a reflection of our history of resistance and a product of that history, like the flower is a product of the seed. Culture is a weapon at this time in history, is the manifestation of the extreme reactionary times in the world we are living in today. As a definition, it is not absolute, but a continuation of expressions and interpretations, compassion, love, beauty, pain, and suffering that one feels and observes that penetrates the soul of the resistance via the resistors, we the people, against all forms of cruel and unjust authority. Culture is a weapon. As a concept, it is not the creative vehicle to communicate genuine truths about social concerns that you will never hear expressed by any reactionary bureaucrat. It is our duty as the makers of the art of resistance to always recognize the oppression of others. The goal should be to make the message clear so that even a child can understand it. Don't be fooled by deception. Know the rules before you break the rules. Don't lose sight of what the goal is. All power to the people. We can start now, please. Next, please. This title of it is Some Real American History. Next, please. This is the issue of the first Black Panther Party newspaper. This is when I came into the Black Panther Party. I became involved in around late January 1967, about 3.5 months after it was started. This came out in April 25th. I happened to come through a house called the Black House in San Francisco, where there used to be a lot of cultural events went on. And Sonia Sanchez, Ed Bullins, Amiri Baraka, then known as Leroy Jones, used to come through. Eldridge Cleaver used to live upstairs. Huey Newton used to come over to try to organize Eldridge to work on the newspaper. Just so happened one evening I came over there, and Bobby Seale was working on this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. He had markers. It was done on a typewriter. I seen what he was doing and told him I could help him to improve it. And it would take me about a half an hour to go home and come back with my materials. When I came back, they said, well, you seem to be committed because you've been hanging around. He said, but we have this whole act. We're going to start this paper, and it's going to call the Black Panther. And we want you to be the revolutionary artist of the paper. And the paper is going to tell our story from our perspective. He said, we want to have a lot of photographs in the paper for those who weren't reading, who wouldn't read the stories or articles, and have large captions and those kinds of things. Because they knew that the black community wasn't a reading community per se. It was not going to read a lot of long articles, but they would learn through observation and participation. So they said, we want to have a lot of artwork and stuff in the paper for that audience. And so then I began to work on the second issue of the Black Panther paper, which is the one when we went to Sacramento to observe the legislation and when they were trying to have the Panther bill to change the gun laws. That paper was called the May Day paper, came out in May of 1967. That was the second issue. Next, please. I want to show this one here because it plays off of two things. It has the first pig drawing that Huey Newton wanted me to draw. And it was on 4 hoofs. And we were going to put the badge number of the police that were intimidating and harassing people in the community. It just so happens that that badge number on that pig, badge 206, is the badge number of the policeman that got killed when Huey Newton got shot. He was notoriously known in the community to be a bad actor. And each week we were going to put a different badge number of the police who were violating the basic human rights of the community during that period. Also at this time, during this paper, you see it says Stokely Carmichael drafted. Well, Stokely Carmichael was going to be drafted into the military. They were trying to draft him into the military so they could send him to prison, get him off the street. So we said, well, we should have drafted him. And so we drafted him into the Black Panther Party. Next, please. This will say is Black Power, your local police. Next, please. This is when we used to work in a studio apartment in the beginning. I don't think it was no bigger than this stage, a little bigger, the apartment where Eldridge Cleaver lived in. And that was before there was any national headquarters, any offices or what have you. And myself, and another sister who had volunteered used to come in and do the cutting and pasting for the paper, while Bobby Seale and Huey would come over in the evening after they got finished organizing and cut it up, and Eldridge was doing the typing and writing for the paper. And they would talk about how they stood down the pigs that evening and those kinds of things. And they came up with the definition of what it was a pig, and I just interpreted that definition. It says, what is a pig? A low-natured beast that has no regard for law, justice, or the right of people. A creature that bites the hand that feeds it. A foul, depraved traducer, usually found masquerading as the victim of an unprovoked attack. Next, please. Here again is one when Eldridge Cleaver was invited to the University of California to teach. Then the governor of the state of California was Ronald Reagan, who became the president of the United States. Ronald Reagan, because he didn't like the Panthers, put pressure on the UC Board of Regents so they would not allow Eldridge Cleaver to teach at the university. They denied him that right. And so that was why we called Ronald Reagan a pig. We said, as speaking as the racist governor of the state of California, I don't think Eldridge Cleaver should teach at UC. So that's why we define him as a pig. This is during the free speech movement at the University of California. Next, please. This is the little Bobby Hutton in the background, very first Panther, Huey Newton. He was murdered on April 6, 1968, 2 days after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. Huey Newton and Bobby Seale had to get permission from his parents for him to join the Black Panther Party. They had mentored him. He was the very first member. He was 15 and a half, 16 years of age when he came in the Black Panther Party. That very first cadre of the Black Panther Party were young people like many of yourselves, 15, 16, 17, 18 years of age. I think I was 21, going on 22. Huey Newton was 23. Bobby Seale, Eldridge Cleaver, and a few other Panthers were the old folks of the party. They were 28, 29, 30 years of age. So this first cadre, this first group, this was a youth movement in the Black Panther Party. Then we began to talk about community control of police thereafter. We were able to get it on the ballot in Berkeley, California, to vote on whether there should be a police review board during that particular time and put it to the people. It lost by 1 vote, but then it began to be made people aware of that all across the country. Next, please. This is called Pigs Run Amok. This is one evening I was out organizing with Kathleen Cleaver and Eldridge Cleaver, late evening in San Francisco. We came back to their house late that evening. The San Francisco police knocked on the door. Eldridge Cleaver asked who it was. They said, the San Francisco PD. He said, well, do you have a search warrant? They said, no, because they have a search warrant, it's legal. They can come in. We had no problem. But if they didn't have a search warrant, we just didn't allow the police to come into our houses. So he said, well, you have to kick the fucking door in. And they began to kick the door in. Now, the reason for that is because earlier that day, Eldridge and Kathleen had threats on their lives. They had consulted with the lawyer so that they could buy a gun to have in their house to protect themselves. Eldridge was an ex-convict on parole. If he had a gun that was in violation of not in that house that wasn't registered and registered to his wife, then he would have been in violation of his parole and they could have sent him back to prison. So it was obvious that they were looking for unregistered guns. So I'm observing the situation while they're doing this, and I'm seeing and I'm interpreting this in this illustration where you got the pigs that kicked in the door, and you got one of the pigs saying, "What are we looking for?" And you got the other pig with the question marks all across his head, and the other one looking under the rug with his snort, and you got the other one with his snort in the toilet, saying, "Where are the guns?" And so this was a kind of a psychological play on that incident. But it was about a month later or less that they went to Bobby Seale's house in Berkeley, California. They did the same thing. They kicked in his door without a search warrant. It was then that we wrote this executive mandate number 3 that you see at the bottom. In essence, what we said, we would no longer allow the police come and kick at our doors without a search warrant because we don't know if they're real police or not. And we referred to a situation in Chicago with the Capone gang in the 40s, I think, or 30s, when some of them dressed up like police, and they went across town, and the gang put their hands up on the wall because they thought you were real police, and they slaughtered them. So we say, we don't know if you're real police or not. And it was thereafter that they began to infiltrate the party with agent provocateurs to begin to create these shootouts that took place across the country. Whereas Bobby Seale had estimated that there were 14 Panthers who had been killed in these shootouts, and 14 police and over 28 Panthers killed in these shootouts across the country during that period. Next, please. Unfortunately, I can't read that real well. I wish I could. I'm not sure how sharp it is. Okay, that's a little sharper. Maybe I can take this out here. Can I go a little closer? I'm not going to try it. Next time. But anyway, it was about that. But here's another one close to that. This is one that a young man named Bobby Heron wrote the poem, and I did the illustration. This is there after when they started kicking in our doors and what have you. And it says, knock, knock, who's there? The pigs. You got a warrant? Don't need one. I'm coming in, bang, bang, oink, oink, off the pigs. Next, please. This is during 1968. In the 60s, you know, in 68 was it had a lot of, you had the war in Vietnam, you had a lot of rebellions in the U.S., all across the United States, you had a lot of rebellions going on. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. It was hell outside, hell inside, because you had these battles going on, the riots and the rebellions and the war in Vietnam. It was very intense, very intense. They do a lot of exhibitions around the year 1968. And I spelled America with 3 Ks. It wasn't my ideal of using the Ks. It's something that had been done before, but I thought it was relevant to use with this particular illustration. Next, please. It's all the same. Local police, National Guard, Marines. There's no difference. All of that comes under Homeland Security now. It's no difference. Next, please. Here you got here we get using the character of a little rat who's eating up everything, eating up black capitalism, and called an avaricious businessman. That would be that would be Wall Street today as you say, and everything he eats up, he poops it out, comes out missiles and gun monies and everything else. Next, please. Here you got the little U.S. imperialist rat winding up his little puppets, sending them off to war. They go to war and realize they're fighting the wrong war, and they come back and turn on the little imperialists. Next, please. You had those who refused to go, who say peace with honor. They say, I'm not going. You had those who went to Canada. Some went to jail. Some went over to Europe and to Scandinavia. They just refused to go. It was peace with honor. Next, please. This is what war does to human beings, the psychological impact of war, how destructive it is to human beings. And it says U.S. government approved. Even today, you got 3 veterans a day or more committing suicide from the wars right now. Next, please. Ha, 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 good old American peace. That was, on your right was Richard Nixon, who was the president of the United States. And on your left was Henry Kissinger, who was the secretary of the United States, criminals running the government, criminals. Next, please. Class brothers. Next, please. Moshe Dayan was a terrorist. To your right, he was the one who destroyed a lot of and created a situation. Part of that, what's going on in the Middle East today. And you got the U.S. imperialists on the other side. Next, please. U.S. imperialists feeding all this other who it controls because they're invested in the United States. They can't survive without the United States. Next, please. Here is again is the little U.S. imperialists nursing all those little piglets, little imperialists. All them countries were involved or directly involved in the colonization of other people in the third world. Next, please. Our fight is not in Vietnam. Free the GIs. Our fight was not in Vietnam. The Vietnamese was the cause of unemployment. The Vietnamese was the cause of inferior education. The Vietnamese wasn't lynching us. The Vietnamese wasn't killing us. So our fight was not in Vietnam. Our fight was right here in this country. Next, please. Here's that same paper when we supported our comrades, the Latino La Siete de la Raza. These were young 7 Latino brothers who were charged with killing of the San Francisco police. They had no money. They had no way to plead their case. They had no lawyer. So we worked with them to get a lawyer, which was our lawyer. And we shared 4 or 5 of our papers with them so they could plead their case in relationship to the situation that they were in. And they were eventually found not guilty of killing the San Francisco police. But you can imagine, if they wouldn't have had any resources and no assistance, they might be in the gas chamber or still in prison today. Next, please. Here it's called Babylon. This is when we begin to coin, Eldridge Cooper began to coin the biblical word Babylon to define the U.S. And here I used a cut out of the Pentagon and had a pig in the middle of the Pentagon, ready for overkill, with a missile between his toes, a lynching rope in his hand, blood-sucking vulture on the butt of the AR M16 gun, hand grenade in the other hand, and drooling dollar bills and dollar signs on the glasses. And in New Haven, Connecticut, in 1968, you had Bobby Seale and Erica Huggins, who were charged with a murder of a comrade, Panther, who she were eventually exonerated of. You had Kent State, Ohio, you had students who were shot and murdered by the National Guard for protesting against the war in Vietnam, 4 white students. You had Jackson, Mississippi. You had also, I think, many other universities. You had black students who were in actual battle on the campuses with the authority, gun battles on the campuses during that period. You had the war in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and you had the struggle of the Palestinians. All of these things in 1968, reflecting back to when I talked that earlier image. Next, please. 1968, you had John Carlos and Tommy Smith, who went to the 1968 Olympics. A lot of people don't know that there were meetings and discussions before they went in regards to what they would do when they went there, in regards to demonstrating and showing the world about the basic human rights violations against the African American community here in the United States. But the Olympians could not come to a consensus on what they would do. So John Carlos and Tommy Smith went there and did what they did. Yet also during that time, you had the students and other activists in Mexico who were slaughtered by the Mexican government at that same, prior to that Olympics during that period as well. Next, please. Here's the illustration I did play it off called the Olympics, where you got the runners get down on the ground, they run the race, hands up, they stand up on the podium with the flag up, and when the flag is up, and when it's over, and they come back home, and when it's over, a nigger is a nigger is a nigger. Don't make no difference if you're an Olympian, don't make difference if you're a doctor, don't make you a lawyer. If you're black in America, you're gonna be profiled. Next, please. This is also when they had the unmanned Sputniks, they were sending up into space, and it says whatever is good for the oppressor has got to be bad for us. So I did this spaceship, this pig ship, and you have them up on the planet, and you had a pig up in the loft there saying, hey, handle those slaves with care. We're going to need them for Mars, Pluto, and all those other planets. Then you got the slaves getting off the pig slave ship saying, I knew we should have stopped this shit before it got off the ground. Then you got the pig over here with the pick and the shovel saying, okay, goddammit, don't take 400 years this time. Next, please. And when they got there, they said, oh, at last, white only. Next, please. Get out of the ghetto, get out of Africa, get out of Asia, get out of Latin America, U.S. imperialism. Next, please. This one had this book called The House of Bondage, dealing with the apartheid system of South Africa. And I want to show how a spark can lit a prairie fire. So I looked in the book, and it shows the most repressive images I could to show how they were the things that instigated the spark that lit the prairie fire in the resistance movement in South Africa. And out of that flame that lit the spark that lit the prairie fire, that created the flame, out of that flame came the freedom fighter. And it said repression breeds resistance. Next, please. Oh, that's RS2 in there. Next, please. Okay. We want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. Here's one that's showing dealing with that issue. But here she shows the mother to be provocative. It shows the mother shooting to protecting her little baby from the rodents by shooting at the rat hole while the rats are coming around to attack the baby. So it's meant to be provocative to bring the message home. Next, please. She said, listen to them pigs banging on my door. They should be paying my rent. Next, please. Save the children. This could be anywhere in the world today. Next, please. Save the children. Next, please. Here again is the one called Freedom, playing off the conditions, oppression, and off the fact that when Bobby, and using the badges as the collages, playing off the fact that Erica and Bobby were incarcerated at that time in New Haven, Connecticut. Next, please. Hey, mister, what you're doing to the poor man, Lord knows you ought to quit it. U.S. government, stop killing black people. Freedom now. Next, please. What you say, Alabama, Mississippi, Chicago, Georgia, California, freedom is a constant struggle. Next, please. I just want to testify. I'm not going to sit around any longer. I got freedom on my mind. Next, please. Oh, no. Okay. We shall survive without a doubt. These collage was with Panther Cubs. These are children who are in their late 30s or 40s. We had our own school called back then, Oakland Community School, considered one of the best alternative schools in the state of California. And we had liberation schools all across the country where we had chapters and branches. And yeah. Next, please. Here you say all power to the people with the different social programs in the back, people's free health clinics, the free breakfast for school children programs. All of those things were reflective of what the Black Panther Party was about in serving the community, body and soul. Next, please. Fight sickle cell anemia. We did testing for sickle cell anemia because the fact that we were observing this group in the state of California at the time who was supposed to have been, was raising money and ripping off the money, talking about they were helping with sickle cell anemia. So we exposed them and we took it over and we did over 100,000 testing all over the country, testing people for sickle cell anemia disease that impacted predominantly African Americans. It was a sickling of the cell and it had kind of health problems. A lot of blacks didn't know they had it until they took the test. You had one brother who was from the chapter in Dallas, Texas, who wrote his book and said he didn't realize that he had sickle cell anemia until he took the test as a Panther. He didn't understand why he was so ill off and on, because until he took the test. Next, please. Here's front of one of our papers when we talked about it, called Black Genocide, Sickle Cell Anemia. Next, please. We also, in regards to germ warfare declared against blacks, this was the Tuskegee experiment in the 1939s, I think it was, when they got these black sharecroppers and put them in this study for syphilis. They gave them $50 a piece because they were poor sharecroppers, and they took it. They found out a cure for penicillin, and that was in 1947, which was penicillin for syphilis, but they did not give it to the sharecroppers. They kept them in the test until 1972. Some of them going blind, passed it on to their families. All these things took place. But it was investigative reporters who could not get the article published in the mainstream papers, so they gave the information to the Black Panther Party newspaper and other alternative paper, news publishing. And so what happened is when this information came out is when they stopped the study in 1972. Next, please. This was called, we had a program called Seniors Against a Fearful Environment, SAFE program, where we used to pick the seniors up, take them shopping from the satellite houses, take them shopping, cash their checks. They used to go to after our school, they'd have fundraisers after schools and what have you. And what happened, you had Oakland, California wanting to spend $54,000 on a helicopter to patrol crime in the community. We said if you really want to stop crime, you would take that $54,000 and invest it into the young people, to take the seniors to shopping, to take them to cash their checks, to take them to get their groceries. If you're really talking about stopping crime, you got to invest in the young people. Next, please. Vote for survival, free food programs. Next, please. Hypertension kills. I'm hungry. I'm unemployed. I'm black. Next, please. Today's news, question mark. Next, please. This is one of my images, but was remixed by the Cuban artists in Cuba. Back in the day, they used to take about 5 or 6 of my images. They remixed them, made these amazing, beautiful posters of the art, and it was called OSPAL, Organization of Solidarity with People from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And these were 2 of my images that they took and remixed and redesigned. I'm going to show you where they came from. The next 2 images are in black and white. Next, please. That's this one. If you go back again, you'll see that's one there. They flipped it and they put the gun on it in the front. Then you go to the next one. That's the one that was in the back. They cropped them. So it shows you that they were reading the paper. They were getting the artwork and all that during that time as well. Next, please. Here again is another one of my images that they took and made into this amazing poster, saying solidarity with the African American people, August 18th, 1968, in four different languages. Next, please. This is the actual image. It was a small image inside the paper, black and white, that they took it from and flipped it around. So it shows the connection there. Next, please. Here again, Afro-American solidarity with the oppressed people of the world. Next, please. Here's one that's got a poem to it. We are soldiers in the army. We have to fight, although we have to die. We have to hold up the blood-stained banner. We got to hold it up until we die. My mother, she was a soldier. She had in her hand the freedom plow. When she got old and couldn't fight no more, she said, we got to get up and fight anyhow. My father, he was a soldier. He had in his hand the freedom plow. When he got old and couldn't fight anymore, he said, we got to get up and fight anyhow. Now, we all are soldiers, and we have in our hand the freedom plow. When we get old and can't fight anymore, we got to get up and fight anyhow. Next. I, Gerald Ford, am the 34th puppet of the United States. President of the United States don't control anything. We know that now. Collapse of Wall Street, you have people coming out to woodwork you never heard of before, telling them what to do and what to be done. Corporate interests control the government. Next, please. This was a Halloween, so I thought it was relevant to do this one. It says, trick or treat, pigs, trick or treat. Then you had, that was Richard Nixon, President of the United States. The one to your right there was Spiro Agnew, the Vice President of the United States. Both of them were criminals. They had to leave office. They had to leave office in disgrace. Disgrace, criminals running the government. Next, please. I wonder if Nixon is bugging us now. Next, please. I wonder if Obama is spying on us now. Because you know they got the Pfizer is a private court that they go to, almost like the Supreme Court, where they get these orders to spy on you. You know, they told Brazil president was so uptight that it was going to cut off relations with the U.S. And Obama said, no, we stopping, we ain't doing it. And then all of a sudden it comes out that they've been spying on Brazil since 2010. Next, please. Cautious, surviving is criminal in two black men's lives. Then it was called the concentration camps USA. Now today you call it the prison industrial complex. And when you talk about privatizations of prisons and the unknown slaves, which they are, then you talk about making profit. And if you talk about making profit, you got to have a product to make profit. And if you don't have enough product, you don't make no money. So if you need to have 50% shelf product to make a profit or to make money, that means there's going to be 50% of those who are going to be incarcerated at any given time in the private prison in order to make a profit. Next, please. This is saying maximum security. The family connected is in minimum security. Why must we look at each other with prison bars? Where is thy freedom? Next, please. Free the New York 21 and all political prisoners. This was early on in the Panthers, when you had the 21 Panthers who were incarcerated and set up for all kinds of charges, over 159 charges. And they were eventually exonerated of all those charges and found not guilty. Next, please. Here again with Bobby Seale to your left and Huey Newton to your right, who were political prisoners of we call U.S. fascism back in the 60s. Next, please. Call this one Kidnapped. This is one day I went to the office and could tell that we knew something was happening, but we didn't know what it was. And that evening we left and we went to a filling station a couple of blocks away. I was in one car with some Panther comrades, and Bobby Seale was in another car. All of a sudden, you had the federal marshals who swooped down on us with machine guns, snatched Bobby Seale out the car. They drove off. In the process, we got in touch with our attorneys and found out that they had took him to the federal building in San Francisco, and he was going back to Chicago because he had spoke at the Democratic convention at the protest rally outside of the convention. And they were claiming that he incited to riot at the Democratic convention. Next, please. So we call this, then after that, they kidnapped him. It says, hello, Black Panthers. We soon will make it possible for all of you to be with your chairman, the art of kidnapping by the FBI. And we call the FBI a little rat, J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover was a racist. J. Edgar Hoover said that black people couldn't do nothing for him but shine his shoes and press his clothes. And then when he was asked about why you don't have any black FBI agents, he went and got his chauffeur or his maid and brought him to the next press conference and deputized him and said, now you have a black FBI agent. That's a fact. Next, please. Fred Hampton. Mark Clark, yes. Thank you. My mind had a lapse there. Next, please. George Jackson, brother who went to jail as a common criminal, got enlightened, educated, started the first chapter of the Black Panther Party inside prison, San Quentin Prison. Next, please. Angela Davis, we're in solidarity in support of Angela Davis. Next, please. Here's one showing that we did on the apartheid movement. This is after the Black Panther Party, about 1987, 89. And you got the three little kids, and they got on the backpack, down with apartheid, on the backpack, marching, puppy love kind of picture. Next, please. This is Sonia Sanjay's first poetry book. I did the artwork for that in 1969, called Homecoming. Next, please. Here's another more recent interpretation of that image I did. Next, please. We're getting into the more recent ones in a few minutes. Here's one dealing with the boycott letters, Cesar Chavez and the farm workers. They were going down International Boulevard in Oakland, California, and we heard all this noise, and we went out to see what was going on, and it was Cesar Chavez and 50 farm workers. And they were going to the state capitol to protest against the chemicals that were harming the farm workers, the pesticides, all the toxic waste that was harming them in working in the fields. And so they were hungry and they needed a place to eat before they carried on. So we arranged for them to come to our school about 20 blocks away to eat. And we marched with them from our headquarters to our school where they had lunch. We had lunch with them and they continued on to Sacramento. And we did this paper to show our solidarity with that whole struggle. Next, please. And we always want to show our solidarity with the original caretakers of the land. So this is what this was about. This is not original art, but this is art I put together to serve that purpose, to show our solidarity. Because we were very close with the American Indian movement, AIM. They were our comrades. Next, please. Now we're getting into the recent images. This is called Malcolm X. I call this Malcolm X the Warrior. Next, please. This is called Malcolm X the Father Figure. Next, please. That's Dr. King. Next, please. Paul Robeson. Next, please. Dealing with, we were all sharecroppers in the whole bit. Next, please. As you see again. We're going to get pretty intense in a minute. Next, please. And this one says something about living in the land of plenty while we the people starve. A remix of an older image called People's Free Food Program. Next, please. And it's a darn shame that the U.S. government won't give the people a helping hand. In essence, is what it's talking about. These are remixes. This is a real sister. This is a sister who used to buy our paper. And every week she lived right in the back of the office, and she used to buy a paper, and she would sit out there and read her paper. This was interpreted from that photograph. Next, please. And this brother used to come by. He would be slushed, but he would come get his paper. He would be slushed, but he would come get his paper every week. And I kind of played off of that. Well, next, please. This was when we had a National Alumni Association, and we had a Black Panther Party Alumni Association, and we put together a poster and as you see, when I talked about the different social programs, in Winston-Salem, we had a free ambulance service. The ambulance would not come into the community. Winston-Salem was the first chapter in the South that we had. So what happened is they went and got certified as ambulance drivers, and the community helped them buy an ambulance, called the Black Panther Party Ambulance Services. In Chicago, Illinois, for their free busing program, somebody gave them a Greyhound bus. They took the Greyhound off, put the Panther on there, and put the Black Panther Party free busing program. So we had a bus in Chicago for those who wanted to see those loved ones who were incarcerated every week. And we had the free food giveaways, the free breakfast program, the free doctors used to come work in the clinics. What we had, donate their time, doctors and nurses. Had alternative school, considered one of the best alternative schools in the state of California. You had people like Sheila E. that used to come donate her time. You had Abby Lincoln, Aminata Mosika, who came and stayed with the kids for 2 weeks and did performances. You had Oscar Brown, I got photographs. Oscar Brown Jr. came and stayed with us for 2 weeks. John Lee Hooker used to do fundraisers for us. We had all this. Next, please. This is Carl Hampton. Now, no kin to Fred Hampton. Carl Hampton was the brother who was in charge of the Houston chapter of the Black Panther Party, Houston, Texas chapter. They had cleaned up the neighborhood where the seniors could go out, kids could go out and play. No prostitution, no drug, all that was cleaned up in the neighborhood by the Panthers. The police came into the community. They had an altercation with them. They left. A couple of weeks later, I believe they came back. Somebody told Carl Hampton that the police was out there. He went out to see what was going on. They had allowed the police to go up into the church, a police sniper, to go up into the church tower. And when he went out into the street, the police sniper shot and killed him from the church tower in Houston, Texas. You had in New Orleans, you had a sister who came to the door, and you had them come dressed, I believe, as nuns and priests. And when she went to the door, she was shot through the chest. She survived. So this kind of tell you what we were dealing with in relationship to the seriousness of things. Next, please. This is called Bluest Eye, based on Toni Morrison's book. I was asked to be a part of an exhibition for banned books and books that were censored. And so this book, I chose this Bluest Eye. I read the story. The sister who mother thought she wouldn't be a beautiful child, wasn't going to be a beautiful child, going to have a hard life, and she did. She was abused. She was confronted with racism and all these other things, that negatives in life. But on the last page, she said, Toni Morrison said something in essence that she could have been assassinated. And to me, that triggered to me that you didn't necessarily have to be assassinated by a bullet. You could be psychologically assassinated. So she was psychologically assassinated. And the bluest eye was not about the bluest eyes, it was about the mind's eye and how she looked at the world. Next, please. Reparations, using figures to spell out the word reparations with chains connected to the figures. Using this West African symbol, Dugan symbol, who says means you are a slave of him whose handcuffs you wear. Next, please. Here again, red, white, and blue chains, reparations. Next, please. This is when I traveled to the border dealing with immigration rights with Fabiana Rodriguez, Latino artist, Chicano artist, invited me and 50 other artists, writers, photographers to go to learn what was happening at the border. So I did this one. This is during the time when Senate bill, I can't see the number on the Senate bill, but in Arizona, they were not allowing the immigrants to go to school, couldn't go to hospitals, couldn't work. None of those things could exist there. And so when we went, and you talks about the corporations who were involved in the private prison operations there, ICE, the other ones who do the kicking in the doors and arresting the immigrants, and I call it toxic waste. Because when we went there, we went across the border. We went to a place where they help the immigrants when they're trying to come across into the States. They got clothes, they got hospitals for them. And we went to another location where they figured they come further inland, and they think they're so close, and they try to encourage them not to continue. And that's usually the ones who disappear. When we came back, some people had went to the morgue. They had over 250 bodies in the morgue for people who were unidentified, who tried to make it across the border. We went into the judge's chamber. We went to the court first. We went into the court, and they got to fast track. You have 75 individuals chained at the waist, at the legs, at the hands. They come up in groups, and within 45 minutes, they find them all guilty. Most of all of them plead guilty. One of them didn't plead guilty. When we went into the judge's chamber, we asked, well, what's going to happen to the one that didn't plead guilty? They said, he's going to get more time. He ain't going to get out. We said, well, where do you send them? They go to private prisons. So it's about making money. It's about profit making. Next, please. Again, dealing with the word justice. This is, again, working with Fabiana Rodriguez. This is was a 3.5 feet by 7 feet woodcut. And we did steamrollers on the ground. It was myself and many other artists who did these. And it says, justice, resist unjust laws. Next, please. Peace. Next, please. Our struggle continues from one generation to the next. This is a remix of the historical one you've seen earlier. Next, please. Here we're getting into the 2012 election, and I call it auction. You got the Jackass for sale, corporate owned. You got the Elephant sold, corporate owned. They spent over $1 billion. $1 billion. The Jackass spent $1 billion. The Elephant spent $10 billion. That don't come from no $25 donation from the people. That ain't about you and us. They ain't got nothing to do with us. Next, please. This is toxic waste. The Democratic and the Republican has two-headed snake. You may have people in there who want to do the right thing, but they've been compromised when they take the oath. When you take the oath, you forget it. So it's, this is toxic waste. Right now, the Republicans is in the aggression. Later on, it would be the Democrats would be in the aggressor. So this is about toxic waste. Next, please. In 1989, the Black Scholar asked me to do an illustration on black politics in the U.S. Same thing. You got the jackass and the elephant eating out the same trough. This is 1989. Next, please. Peace heals, war kills. Next, please. This is about the New World Order, the same old order. And it was called the 3 M's. Man made money, money drove man mad. This is what this is about. Sometimes you got the UN in the mix. You got the US, you got the apartheid government, Zionist government of Israel, you got NATO. All those are the things that's involved in the drones and the killings that's going on in the world. You got Blackwater, now called academia, which is the mercenaries. You got the World Bank. You got all those interests in these banks. All that's the interest is creating the chaos that's in the world today. Next, please. That's to the left. That's maybe Obama, the father, the humble man. But I see him doing the right on the business. He's doing the government business. They got a kill list. A lot of people don't know that. There's a kill list that he signs when he gets together every week. And they decide on who they're going to assassinate in the world. No trial, no nothing. They decide on who they're going to kill. They call it a kill list. Signature killing. When he went to get the Nobel Prize, he didn't give a peace speech, he gave a war speech. So that makes him a Nobel fraud. Next, please. Guantanamo Bay. He said he was going to close Guantanamo Bay. Only the pressure of the people is beginning to see that being pushed. That's a fact. That's a fact. You had the American Psychological Association teaching them how to torture, telling them how to torture in Guantanamo Bay, until you had a group within that organization rebel against that. So now they stopped it in relationship to Guantanamo, but they're still torturing in the United States prisons, and they're still telling them how to torture inside the United States prisons. You have the American Medical Association administering the torture in Guantanamo Bay. Next, please. This is called Real Talk. Mama, President Obama sure can talk good. Yes, sweetie, it's his job to make us believe things will be okay and doo-doo don't stink. He's a great communicator. Great communicator. The man can speak. Next, please. Drone warfare. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Africa. This is where all the drones killing people every day. They say it's almost 99% of those killed are innocent people by the drones that's being dropped. Creating more terrorists, not less, but more terrorists. You're killing the family, you're killing the terrorists. They go out, don't know what's going on. They go to help them. They come back and they send another missile in, kill those innocent people. Then they send another one in and kill another group of people. And you think that they're supposed to be passive and say, oh, well, that's okay. And you got those now who are doing the actual killing from these locations that they have, are now protesting and are now resisting themselves against the fact of what they've been doing. Next, please. This is what Lord does to human beings. You still lose arms, legs. You have all this. This war is not a beautiful thing. You got, toxic in the ground, depleted uranium. You got all this happening. You got thousands of people who don't have no limbs, no arms, are blind from landmines and all these unexploded ordnance. Next, please. I was contemplating the word peace. Peace can be relative. Peace can be peace. Peace can be attacked. Peace is being attacked today. Next, please. Peace is being bloodied. Next, please. Guilty of genocide. Genocide. The deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. Next, please. This is Yemen, but this could be this could be Pakistan, anywhere. This could be Palestine. You got the Saudis, who the U.S. and the British have been giving them the logistics and the military to the Saudis to kill the people of Yemen. The Saudis who cut off many heads as a terrorist. And what you're causing thousands injured, millions displaced, millions food insecurity, humanitarian food blockades. You got all that going on. Thousands dead, water shortage. That's war. That's war. That's genocide. Next, please. We got, the world is in frack. You got all this ice is melting 3 times faster than it was up there. You got some people don't believe in global warming. Well, that's okay. It's something. You don't have to call it global warming, but it's something. Next, please. Arab, Muslim, Islam. U.S. government coded word for terrorist hate discrimination. Next, please. Black male. U.S. coded word for hate, discriminate, kill. Next, please. As much as things change, some things stay the same. Why do they get to brutalize and kill us and we get to blame? Police terror, USA. Next, please. This is the image that I did of some of the images you see with Richard Bell, Aboriginal artist. This was a mural that we did in Campbelltown in Australia a couple of years back. It's about 60 feet by 16 feet high. And so this is the results of that image. And he's done some more work to it since then. Next, please. Also in Australia, they wanted to show, due to Tommy Smith, John Carlos, but a lot of people didn't realize the white guy named Peter Norman ran second in the race. Peter Norman was in solidarity with John Carlos and Tommy Smith. He wore the badge for Olympians for Human Rights in solidarity with them during that time. He was still the fastest human being in the races that he ran for the next Olympics, but they blacklisted him because he supported John Carlos and Tommy Smith. And a lot of young people didn't know about that. So they wanted to do this particular mural. Next, please. We also Aboriginal activist named Gary Foley, well known. They just wanted to cut it off, to leave it like this. It says, "Pardon me for being born into a nation of races." And this is in Australia. This is Richard Bell, kind of cut off of him, the Aboriginal artist that I work with. Next, please. These are embroideries of my work done by the Zapatista Mayan Women Collective in Chiapas. There are 6 embroideries that were created of my work. When I went to Idelo Art Center, I was there for 10 days at Idelo, and we went into the community, Zapatista rural community, did some painting in a collective of artists and while I was there. But these were images that, and I'm just showing you 3 of them here. Next, please. They're about 20 by 30 inches, where some were hand embroidered, some were done by, parts were done by machines. Next, please. And the next 3 images will show you the actual images they came from. Next, please. Those are the 3 images that they used to create those images from. Next. This is the young kind of Mexican brother named, I forgot his name, but he created the poster. There's a whole movement called Zapatera. That's a play off of Zapatista Panthers. And the whole thing was, when I went to Idelo Art Center, they wanted to show how the aesthetics in both movements were inspiring to those movements, and the culture and the art and all those things. So they started the whole Zapatera. You got some hip-hop reggae artists who've done a record called Zapatera. We had the exhibit there. We went into community together with him, and we also did some painting. When you go to Chiapas, they are loving people, very proud Mayan people, but they don't have the money, so you have to pay your way. You have to bring everything. You have to bring the paints. You have to bring your sleeping bags. You have to bring everything there to do the work. And so that's what we done. Next, please. We went to here. This is at a school. We had to get, they had to set it up to get permission from their junta, the government, to go there to paint this. It's like the auditorium for them. Like this would be the auditorium for the kids. This is dirt floors. That's up there's just a wooden platform. Up the top, there's no opening. And we out in the jungle. And we had it was about 15 of us. We had to sleep up in there on sleeping bags. Very dim light. Bats flying over us at night. you turn on your computer, to look at something on your desktop, the bugs attack it. You can't. So you have to cut it off. You go to the bathroom, you got to go down the hill and go to his or her outhouse with the hole in the ground. That's the reality of in Chiapas, which is Zapatistas, which in 1994, they went to war with the U.S. government because of NAFTA, and they battled with the government, and they decided to change their tactics from one of going to confronting with war to beginning to develop their institutions for themselves in the jungle, in the rural areas. Amazing. Next, please. This is what we did in 2 days, working together with the paint that we had. And so we were able to highlight it, and then the young people came in and worked with us. Next, please. This is when I went there the first time. This was me in the door of the store. This is a Zapatista store. We were getting permission to paint this store. And we came back to paint the store, and we stayed in the back of the store, about 10 minutes away, up in the jungle. This is on the main way to Palenque, where they have all those artifacts and all the stuff that goes on. And when we came back the next year, here's what we did. Next, this is what we painted. And it talks about solidarity. It talks about solidarity, health, education, all those things reflected in the art itself. And they wanted to use the kind of the rays, kind of things that I was using in the artwork to do that. Next, please. Yeah, there is the Zapatista dials, or part of the installation of the store itself. Next, please. These are images that I contributed to the mural of the store. Next, please. They're people of the corn, so I did one of the corn and the whole bit. Next. Ayotzinapa, the 43. This was in memory of those youngsters who disappeared by the Mexican government recently in Mexico. Next, please. These are youngsters in Urbis in Manchester, England. This is youngsters who I did a masterclass with before the exhibit was in Urbis in Manchester, England. And they were dealing with their self-esteem. So their artwork was included in the exhibit itself in Manchester, England. This was in 2008. And it went on from 2008 to 2009. And it was an amazing experience working with these young people. Many of themselves, I get letters from them. A lot of them are activists, young activists themselves today. Next, please. This is the exhibit. This was one of the most interactive exhibits that I've had in relationship to the artwork. There were desks in 2 different places with required reading by the Black Panther Party connected to each desk. So when people came in, they could sit down and read. They had places where you could review on the screens small snippets of videos, listen to audios of the history of the Black Panther Party. And you had all throughout the exhibit, you had the artwork itself. It was an amazing. They had over 43,000 people who came to that exhibit from October 2008 to April 2009. Next, please. That's the opening night of the exhibit itself. Next, please. This is myself at school recently in Oakland, California, with the Allendale Elementary Tigers. So I usually go to schools with young people. I have artwork that specifically I used for young people. Many of these images won't be in there, but there's other artwork that's relevant to them that they'll be inspired by. Next, please. This is when I was in New Zealand. I did a collaboration with Wayne Ewell, a Maori artist, myself, and another artist named Rigo23. And I told him I found on the internet this symbol called a twist symbol, which represents the single twist, which means that you may go different ways, but you always come back together. He said, oh, that's just a regular symbol. You know, I said, to myself, I said, well, how am I going to make this impactful, this symbol? How am I going to use this symbol to make it beyond what just being a symbol? So I took the Maori twist and I took the Maori flag and I combined them together and I came up with this image here on the next one. And so this is what I was able to design. And in Maori, it says, overcoming oppression is our path to unity. That's what that represents in general in the Maori language. Next, please. This is when our first time I went to Elam International School of Fine Arts in New Zealand for 41 days. This is on the streets. These are images about tall as those wall right there, where those paintings are, up by the university itself. And so I was there for 41 days doing the presentations and what have you. Next, please. This is in Argentina. I was invited to Mar del Plata, Argentina, by young people, graphic designers who contacted me on the internet, who wanted me to come because they had a group called Trimarchi, and they didn't have any real designers to teach them for many years, so they began to invite people, artists and graphic designers in to come, and they invited me to come and do a talk. They had a major basketball stadium. They have 5,000 young people who are part of the come. In the corridor of the stadium itself, you have all these artists with their work, amazing work, selling their artifacts outside in between the presentations. They have music and they have skateboarding and all these things connected to it. I did my presentation. It was highly received. I got, like you go to the theater and you get 7 curtain calls. Well, that's what happened. But I began to figure out, why was that? What was that about? But then I realized what they saw in the artwork was some of the same kinds of things that they were going in through their lives, in their countries, what they were dealing with. They seen the interconnection in the artwork of dealing with self-determination, dealing with the defiance, resisting against oppression. Next, please. So that's at the end of the presentation. Next, please. Free the land by any means necessary. Boycott, divest, down with apartheid. Next, please. Here is a part of an artist for Palestine. It was 9 different artists. The wall is almost half as tall as these walls here. And this is in Oakland, California. It was indigenous artists who were involved. There was a Japanese American artist, Afrocentric artist, a Jewish American artist, Arab American artist, Palestinian artists were involved in this project. And we each had a spot, and this is what I wanted to interpret from an image that I had seen. And next, this is what it looks like, the whole wall. Next, please. Health is wealth. I like this saying, yeah, it's non-toxic. Next, please. Mama said HIV/AIDS is an act of genocide. It's an act of genocide in Africa, and it's becoming, I can't read it because it's foggy. But, act of genocide in Africa, and it's becoming an epidemic in our community. Next, please. This was done with the Solidarity with Haiti Committee in relationship to the cholera situation, where you had the UN soldiers feces and peed in the water, caused over 8,000 deaths in Haiti. And so I wanted to did this image to show my solidarity with that. Next, please. This is called the Black Code. You got the slave code where you got the redlining where they cheated blacks out their property, 60 to 70% higher cost for property when they could. Those are good buy property. Slave code, if you walk down the street and you looked at a white woman, you could be lynched by any those kinds of things. But the Black Code is a person has no rights which a institutional racist judicial system is bound to respect. It gives the appearance of being fair and just when the biased decisions have already been decided. So that was my interpretation on the Black Code. Next, please. Black Lives Matter. Next, please. Black Lives Matter. Next, please. Father's love. Next, please. Mother's love. Next, please. Mental bondage. You got 1% of these youngsters out here call it mental bondage. All they're doing is thinking bullets, shooting bullets, back and forth. They don't care. They say let them do it. You know, that's mental bondage. Next, please. This is that image. Just recently in January was back in New Zealand, working with a group of young people. And that image they want to interpret for the gang violence that they have in New Zealand. Because I was in the hood in South Auckland, New Zealand. And they got a lot of Maori gangs there, different gangs going on. And so they wanted to interpret that. And this is what we came up with. And now they took this image and it's at one of the strip malls that they have where they go shopping and what have you. And it was a collaborative thing with a group of young people there. And instead of using the Maori mochas, what they call them as opposed to tattoos, we play with the word peace as the tattoos. Next, please. Endangered species. These youngsters don't know. They're coming in endangered species. And the police say, don't care. Let them kill each other. We don't care. Only when it comes to a point where oppression is an outcry, then they try to say something. Other than that, they don't care. Next, please. When they go into prison, they don't realize they're getting in modern-day slavery until they get into it. And it's about profit, about money. Next, please. They're private property. The prison industrial complex. That's about private property. That's what the prison's about, private property. Next, please. This was about the San Francisco 8. These were Panthers who were charged with the murder, set them up for framing of a San Francisco precinct that was shot up in the 1960s, 68, I think, 68, 71, somewhere around in there. But these Panthers was in New Orleans. They went to New Orleans with the San Francisco Police Department. They went there with the LA. They went and said they wanted to talk with them, took them in a room, stripped them down, put them in a chair, and began to torture them. Put hot bags over their head, began to beat them with billy clubs. And one of them said that he was on the farm and he knew what they was fitting to do next because he had lived on the farm. They took cattle prods, stuck them under their testicles, under their anuses, all over their bodies. And they said, okay, we'll say what you want. So they said, don't worry, we got that right here, just sign it. But when they went to court in New Orleans, they threw it out under duress. They wouldn't call it torture. They said under duress because they confessed under duress. They went to LA and San Francisco, they threw it out. 40 years later, you have the federal marshals come knocking on their door who was not in any level of giving orders then, who was now in charge, come knocking on their doors. And they charge them with these crimes for 40 years, claiming they got all this evidence. They go to court. You had activists and people put up their houses for them, for their bail. They went to court, and make it short, they say they had the gun. They say they had the cigarette lighter, all these things. When they went to court, they kept asking for the gun. They finally had to say they didn't have no gun, no shotgun. But then they claimed they had the cigarette lighter, they had the Panthers' fingerprints on it. They took it to 5 different laboratories, matched none of the Panthers' fingerprints, none of them. So eventually they wanted to plead to a lesser charge to save face. They said, no, we're not completing anything. We didn't do anything. So eventually they had to let them out of prison. Next, please. Free the Angola 3, targeted frame, isolated, over 36 years in solitary confinement. One brother got out 10 years ago or more. One brother got out, died 2 days later. While he was out and on his deathbed, they recharged him again. Last brother, been found not guilty 3 times, but each time they refused to let him out. Now he's got to go back for a new trial. Next, please. Eddie Conway, brother was locked up for 44 years. Just released recently, a year or so ago. Next, please. Mumia Abu Jamal. Need to donate, help this brother. You help him, you're helping all prisoners when you talk about hepatitis C. And not having access to the medical health and stuff that can help with hepatitis C. Next, please. Here again is dealing with the word justice and the whole bit. Next, please. In the support of our comrade, Political Prisoners USA, freedom fighters, male and female, fighters for peace, justice, freedom, particularly the struggles against recognized, cruel, and oppressive conditions, government's inhumane policies and actions. Next, please. Free Political Prisoners USA. Next, please. All power to the people. Thank you much. All power to the people. To the people. Yeah.
We're going to take 15 minutes for Q&A if anyone has any questions or comments. If you have comments, let's just try to keep it brief so we can get as many people as possible.
Hi, good evening, brother. My name is Asantwa Nkrumah Toure, and thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very, very much for your work.
Yes.
Just to go back a little bit to a previous discussion we had earlier today, I see in your work you've done a lot of travel
Yes.
about different places. If I remember correctly, because I'm not that much younger than you,
Yeah.
but I think you, back in the day, you did a painting of Ho Chi Minh or something, right? No? Or somebody else?
I get credit for sometimes for things I didn't do.
That wasn't you? Okay. And also, wasn't there also a panther something in India, like among the Dalits?
Yeah, they mentioned that today in that workshop. Yeah, there were the Dalit Panthers who were inspired by the Panthers in the United States. There were Polynesian Panthers who were official chapter of the Black Panther Party in New Zealand. And you can go to YouTube and you can see their story, all the Polynesian Panthers. There were the Australian Panthers who were inspired. There was also an official chapter of the branch of the Panthers in London. You had Palestinian Panthers. You even had some inside of Israel during that time as well, who were struggling and resisting against the apartheid system in Israel. Yes.
I just wanted to thank you. I met Emery about 4 years ago in Oakland, and I asked him who his influences were, or what influenced him, and he said the struggle. So I really appreciate an artist that is not self-promoting, but really talking about the issues and talking about community and not just being an art star or just his own ego. And I think the greatest artists are the ones that are humble and just fighting for what they believe in. And I also asked, I'm also an artist. I'm doing a show called Art as Activism, that was inspired by a show that I saw in New York at the New York Historical Society that had Emery's work and a lot of other work. So I would like to open this up because I figured that other artists came to hear Emery speak. This is going to be in March in West Philly, 50th and Baltimore, the Satellite Cafe. I'll be in the back of the room. If there are any artists that want to exhibit in this show in this March. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question for Black artists up and coming who are showing work and are making work about issues that make the establishment very uncomfortable. And how would you, as an artist today, coming up without a name, Black, talking about predominantly Black issues, and how would you display your work? Because the work like that is being ostracized from galleries. They make galleries uncomfortable. So as a Black artist today, how would you expose your work? Because there is no longer a newspaper.
Yeah, but you have to come with a collective of artists and galleries that want to work with you, and you have to create that whole kind of alternative kind of spaces that people will come to and be involved with for the art that you're talking about, because of the fact that now you do have galleries who have liberal-minded or some progressive-minded in them, because I've been asked the question, what do I think about galleries and the museums who want to display my work today? And that I had MoCA, Museum of Contemporary Art in L.A., the new Museum of Contemporary Art in New York, also in Portugal. I've had exhibits in London at Banksky's gallery. Didn't see Banksky, don't know if he or she. And also Nottingham, different places. I'm just mentioning these to say that there is those people who are interested in the work, but you have to, if it has to make it relevant in the context of them wanting to and getting it out there so it can be seen. You know, you got a lot of young people who rent spaces or working together and seeking out, and you have to do all those things. But the art that I did, it was something that for some reason people have been appreciative of it and have wanted to some kind of way wanted to have it displayed or exhibited. And so it comes from a whole other dynamics than I think than today. I'm quite sure it might be much more different for young artists coming up, because this art came out of a total movement. This was an art that was a reflection of a movement, you see. So it was about a new movement that was internationally known, where people were inspired by internationally in relationship to some of the work, and was using the sampling some of the art during that time. As you've seen, I showed the work in Cuba and what have you. So you got a whole nother dynamics. But you also got to reach out, you know. You have to reach out. You have to reach out beyond borders as well. Yeah. Do collaborations, you know. And it's always not about getting rich, because you may not get rich doing this, you know. It ain't about, you know. Yeah. But you got to reach out. I mean, when I went to Chiapas, I did murals, you know, with other artists and stuff. Then that, people see that. And then people, when you do social media, do it for the constructive right purposes, as opposed to just for the fun of it. You can use it to put political and social commentary on there so that people can see it. And somebody might want to contact you and say that they're interested. Like for myself, when I talked about going to Argentina, because I put images out there for people to look at it, you know. If they want to post them up on their site, that's fine, but they can't market them, you know, those kinds of things. So then you do have media, you do have sites out there that have nothing but political art on them. You got a few sites like that as well, you see. So you got to search out these kinds of things and get together and find some space where you can do. And the work has to be quality work too. And you have to critique and evaluate the work to make sure and see how and get the response back. And you can't fear the response if the of the person who responds critiquing it, if they don't like what you say, or if you don't like what's visually how it's being expressed. So now, if you choose to, you can go back and make adjustments, or you don't have to, But sometimes, so it's all those things, all those dynamics. You got to put it out to see how people respond to it. Those kinds of things as well. Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I didn't find it. I didn't know. I'll answer them all. That's no problem. Okay.
I searched.
Could you speak louder, please?
Yeah. So I searched you on Google, so I didn't have to ask any questions. Oh, I searched you on Google, so I didn't have to ask any questions that would already been asked, but or have been said. But so you went to school for art for a little bit, or you studied a little bit?
Well, for myself, I'm basically self-taught. I went to City College of San Francisco and took up commercial art. Mm-hmm. And that learned me how to do the work for production, work the type you do for publications and laying out and those kinds of things. And I developed my skills on-the-job training because I developed to the point where they used to send me on job assignments and what have you. And then you work in small community print shops and design shops where they don't have the high-end equipment, but they still take on high-end jobs, but they have to know how to do it with the less of equipment. So you learn how to cut corners and do things with less. So all those things that helped me out in regards to the creative process of getting things done as well.
Cool. I said
No,
cool.
no.
Thanks.
Huh?
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I can tell you now, when I was a kid, my auntie used to have this calendar. She used to get it every year of this black artist. And when I come to find out, that was Charles White, because I used to mar that calendar. I used to see it every year, and I would look at that calendar, and every year, then I finally realized that was Charles White, the well-known artist. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
First of all, thank you for your conviction and your courage. I work with youth and work with social studies curriculum around like the Black Panther Party and the Black Power movement and immigration and some of the things that you're talking about. So I would love it if, and I know there's a lot of educators in this space, so I'm asking the question so everyone can get the answer. Where could we potentially get these pictures? I mean, if a PowerPoint's available or something, because I would love to use these images in the curriculum for my children.
Well, on the some of these are already in the book, the historical ones. In the book, Black Panther, The Revolutionary Art of Emory Douglas.
I saw that. It's on sale online, the new ones.
The more recent ones, I'm now in collaboration with an artist, black artist named Colette Gator, teacher, professor, to work on putting the book together with more recent artwork and work that wasn't published before. So that'd be a process, but it's being worked on.
Is there any way for use of educational purposes that some of those images can be used prior to that being accessible, or no?
Well, that could be possibility. We would have to work it out. It'd have to be something to be worked out, but I use them all the time as educational. That's what this is about, educational, yeah. I mean, but if you got a camera and you took a thing of it, then you would have it for your education on your whatchamacallit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to close it out. I just want to say on behalf of Brock, we want to thank Emery for coming to Philadelphia, participating in the Black radical tradition. We love and appreciate you. I want to thank you all for coming out to our closing event. Thank you so much.